You're going to have such great health care at a tiny fraction of the cost, and it's going to be so easy.
President Obama has been the most ignorant president in our history. He has been a disaster as a president. He will go down as one of the worst presidents in the history of our country.
Nobody knows the system better than me, which is why I alone can fix it.
Back to Hardball. President Trump was elected on the promise, you just heard it there, that he would enact a bold and aggressive agenda that would wipe away President Obama's legacy. But 6 months in now, it's July, almost the end of July, he and his party have little to show for themselves. Senate Republicans, however, are hoping to change that. Tomorrow, they're expected to plow forward with a vote to begin debate on legislation that would repeal and replace care. This afternoon, President Trump turned up the heat on Republicans, calling them to keep their promise. Let's take a look.
Every Republican running for office promised immediate relief from this disastrous law. We as a party must fulfill that solemn promise to the voters of this country to repeal and replace what they've been saying for the last 7 years. Any senator who votes against starting debate is telling America that you are fine with the Obamacare nightmare.
Well, meanwhile, Trump's fellow Republicans are growing weary with a health care debate that seems to have exposed deep fault lines within the party. Texas Republican Congressman Pete Sessions told one political website that internal tensions and distrust within the party are as bad as he's seen in years. White House aides have told Politico that the president is looking to distance himself from congressional inaction, all while going after Republicans who oppose the legislation. This weekend, Trump previewed those attacks, tweeting, "It's very sad that Republicans, even some that were carried over the line by on my back, do very little to protect their president." For more, I'm joined by Republican Congressman from Georgia, Buddy Carter. Congressman, thank you for this. I have always understood, well, let me ask you this. Why didn't Trump come into office and test the water on repeal by having a quick vote in both houses on straight repeal? And then you would have known how many votes you had and how many you had to give away to get some, save some of the features of Obamacare.
Well, quite honestly, I don't think anyone envisioned this being the problem that it has become. When you think about the fact that just last year in the 114th Congress, we passed a Repeal Act.
But you knew there'd be nobody to sign it. So
well, that's the key.
Well, it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. It was impotent because you could vote 60-some times before you became a member. The House voted the Republican majority to repeal, knowing that Obama would never sign a repeal of his legislation. So it looked good. It was good for re-election. But then you're confronted with the reality. How do you keep the parts of Obamacare that people like, pre-existing conditions? And how do you do that even harder by getting rid of all the mandatory requirements to be in this system? It's very hard to do this.
It is very hard, and the president himself said that health care is difficult, and it is. It's complicated.
How are you going to end up here?
Well, what we're going to end up is hopefully that Mitch McConnell will get the bill, the procedural vote, passed tomorrow, get the debate started, and then hopefully pass the American Health Care Act that
passed
passed out of the
House. But you already have 4 or 5 people now, maybe more, up to 10 senators on your side of the aisle who say they won't vote for it.
Well,
so how do you get 50?
That's what they said last week. We'll see tomorrow how they vote on it.
If you allow people who are just maybe, you might say, unable financially or maybe irresponsible personally, and say, I'm not going to buy insurance. I mean, a lot of kids in their 20s, I don't think I would have been thinking about it. Ride motorcycles without a helmet, enjoy life, and drink or whatever else. And then you get in an accident or later in life you find you have diabetes or something really serious with your heart. And then you like to buy insurance. Your system would allow for that, because if you don't require people to be in this system, but yet you cover it pre-existing, you're saying to a person when you're 45, 50, 60, 70 years old, you finally get sick, then sign up. That won't work financially.
Then you'd have only sick people in the system. The American Health Care Act allows parents to continue to cover their children up to the age of 26. That is part of what Obamacare had in it.
But it doesn't require them to do it.
Well, it doesn't require them.
Well, then how are you going to keep healthy people in this system?
Well, what's going to happen is we're going to create a robust, vibrant insurance market where insurers are competing for your business.
Not for people with pre-existing conditions.
No. Now, the American Health Care Act addresses pre-existing conditions. We took care of that. What we sent over to the Senate takes care of pre-existing conditions. We made certain of that. We promised that. Okay. We promised there would be...
The average guy or woman out there is thinking, I got to pay all the bills, I got to feed my family, I got to pay tuition bills and everything else. And by the time I'm done, I list what I have to buy. I don't have enough money to buy insurance. So I'm going to wait till somebody gets really sick, then I'm going to buy insurance. What stops them from doing that?
Well,
under your system.
Under our system, under the American Health Care Act, what we did is we penalized them if they did not have coverage. We made they have to have a 30% penalty.
So that's a mandatory then?
Well, that's a penalty they have to pay.
Well, then
if
it's
they haven't
mandatory. Then you are making it mandatory.
We're not making it mandatory. What we're making
just going to
mandatory.
punish them if they don't do it.
Well, listen, they should be punished. You can't buy fire insurance when your house is on fire.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
You shouldn't be able to buy health insurance when you have.
I don't know any kid who likes to ride a motorcycle. I used to ride one. When you're out on the highway and you get, you wipe out, which happens once in a while. You want somebody to come and take you back to the hospital, and you didn't pay a nickel for that, but you expect it to happen.
Right. Right.
How's that square with libertarian philosophy?
Well, listen, that's not going to change. You're still going to be taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
None of that will change.
Okay. Let me ask you this: do you think this is going to pass? Your plan?
I'm
do you
still
think Trump's going to win here? Really, really?
I'm still very optimistic and still very confident that we can get this done.
I disagree, but that's why you're here.
That's right.
Difference of opinion. Thank you very much, U.S. Congressman Buddy Carter.